cool.
I would share this tip, to the network.
It was. Oh, duh.
Okay, isn't that nice?
I hate that picture, but yes.
Yeah, well, I hate my pictures too.
I always hate my pictures.
I always want to see what the picture is first. No,
I know. No, I've done it before. And they're like, oh no, we'll make you look good. And I'm just like usually angry looking. I'm like, is that just all the time?
Yeah,
Oh, my battery about to go out. Y'all got something over
Square.
here? It's just terrible. I need one of them little. My girlfriend had bought me one
portable
Christmas, one of those little chargers.
Yeah, the portable charger was nice. We're watching us.
Android. Mhm. That's okay. We can. And he gave this number.
He had to. We took him to court to force him to do it.
They didn't say he had to have it.
I know. Like, that's the thing, man. They're getting really good from loopholes. You just said to make a number to call. Now that people had to answer it. Let's try not to break anything. I think there's a spider on me and it's my hair. I'm trying to lose my mind. I'm just gonna start running screaming. And then, people will finally be like, yep, finally have it. She finally lost it. My grandparents are afraid of my hair. But I don't want spiders on me. See what happens. Remember, in September 2015, that's when we petitioned EPA to step in Flint, and they didn't. And that's when we went for the suing. So we threatened with Benton Harbor to do the same. We petitioned the EPA. Whitman was like, you ain't making me a Snyder. And that's why stuff got done in Benton. And it is because of those shoes. Yep.
But she but anyway,
There's already women who do
look
that.
at your Tuesday evening schedule. Because we do this on Tuesday, but we can have an alternative Tuesday. We have unfinished business for Shannon's
Yeah.
coalition, but we can do
Right.
not even coming together to do that.
But Tuesday evenings are usually, unless there's something like this or whatever this was, so they're like pretty open. Usually, and I get out at like 5:30.
Wait, that might be under. Well, I'm telling my business.
Right. And people like really don't care about your schedule now, so that's great.
You should.
I hear I got stranded in the Chicago airport once thing. And she's like, go ahead and get me. She's like, I'll be home later on today. She's like, make sure you give me a report out how the summit goes. I'm like, it was in my calendar as Flint Water, whatever. So it's not like I could be just,
I'm
Yeah,
glad,
are we
I'm
with
glad
Aaron?
we all went. So,
yeah, me too. Oh, do people hearing that?
he said, "What?
We're live. So people hearing my saying things. Yeah, well, I
You'd
should
be on Candid Camera. Remember that show? You might be
Yes.
old enough to know.
No, I did. I watched him care. Because, I mean, you know what, though? I said all the honest with involved. Well, let me tell you what I thought about this. But most of the time, I am pretty, I just try to be PR sometimes. Try to keep that in mind.
That's the everyday ground.
It's hard. I'm like, if people got to, actually hear what goes through my head and does not make it out of my mouth, that's a whole different movie right there.
Okay. So what should we do? We ready?
People listening,
Okay.
just-
All right. That works for me. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, boys and girls, it's another episode of the Democracy Defense League podcast, and we're going to be doing a series of subject matter as it relates to water going forward for the next several months, because we have a numerous amount of issues confronting us. We've got the pipe replacement problem, the unfinished business, yard restoration. Some of you all haven't had your yard fixed. Been 2 or 3 years since your pipe was replaced. We got water shutoffs resumed for starting January this year. So we have a series of shutoffs going on. And by the way, many of the agencies have run out of money for that. We've got drop charges of the governor and his cohorts, and we can't see daylight to reinstitute these charges. So we're in a real bad way. And we also got an underwhelming settlement from the state of Michigan that many of us filed claims for. Remember last summer, you had to have your claim form in, and we were getting online and getting stuck on there, and we had an awful time trying to apply for the settlement. And then when it's all said and done, it was a very underwhelming amount of money, not to mention not one penny has been given to any of us through that process. And then we got the ongoing issues of water quality. Is the water safe? Why and why not? We're going to get into that going forward. The emergency manager, that law is still on the books. We know that the emergency manager is the one that ordered our willing mayor at the time, willing to go down there. But tonight, my special guest is Melissa Mays. Melissa was one of the plaintiffs in a lawsuit that was launched in 2016.
Mhm.
And she, along with the concerned pastors, have been on the battlefield trying to get these pipe replaced so we can get a semblance of clean water. And the idea that after it's almost 9 years, it's 216, 2 years shy of nine, about 7 or 8 years, we've been on this issue that our city, and she's going to give you the details, why has this not happened? At least it would be a down payment on clean water,
Right,
to get that done, and it's not done. They don't even listen to, who doesn't listen to the judges? How do you do that? But anyway, we're going to have her talk about the origins. Now, this is not the settlement lawsuit against the state that so many have been waiting for the judge out of Ann Arbor to issue our money, give us our money from the water settlement. This is a totally separate case dealing with pipe replacement, and just as important, your yard restoration. And some of you have been years getting your pipe replaced and still yard is tore up. So I'm going to open it up with Melissa. Introduce yourself and tell us how this all got started about pipe replacement.
Well, in 2015, January 2015, when I met you and so many other amazing water warriors talking about the water shutoffs and affordability all the way back then, we started talking about water quality. And we got to talk to Aaron Brockovich and Bob Bocock, who told us that, he started saying there was a problem with our corrosion, that the orange and brown water weren't good, but that was iron corrosion, but that's not the scary stuff. The scary stuff are the metals that you can't see, like lead. And he said, you guys need to test for lead and copper and all of these other neurotoxins that could be getting leached into the water. So of course we tested it and we found all of these heavy metals in the water on top of the bacteria and the disinfection byproducts. And with Kurt Guyette, he was an investigative reporter for the ACLU of Michigan. We uncovered a lot of problems. The heavy metals, the lye, the bacteria, they weren't treating the water right. They weren't using corrosion control. So the stuff that we pretty much all know, right? However, we needed to change it. We needed to do something. And of course, at that time, Governor Snyder wasn't going to, through his own goodwill, start replacing the damaged infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And not just that, treat the water properly and all that. So we do have in this country, even though it is outdated, and in the state of Michigan, a Safe Drinking Water Act. It's the SDWA, which is what this specific lawsuit, like Ms. Claire had made clear. This isn't the money lawsuit. This is about the pipes, so it's separate. But it's under the federal and the state Safe Drinking Water Act, and there are certain laws in that the state and city were just blowing past. They weren't even bothering to treat the water. They were cheating on the testing. Still is. They were lying about pretty much everything. And so in September of 2015, we had the Coalition for Clean Water. We had announced that there was all of these violations and all this, that there was lead in the water everywhere. It was not just a couple homes, and that we asked for a federal investigation. We asked for federal help. We petitioned the EPA to step in. And then when they didn't, we said, okay, well, we were introduced through Eric Mays. Councilman Mays had introduced us to Trishelle Young, who then introduced us to the ACLU of Michigan, who then introduced us to the Natural Resources Defense Council, which is a huge nonprofit that is about public health and the environment. And so we met with them at the end of 2015 and started discussing, okay, well, the city and state are out of compliance of the Safe Drinking Water Act. What can we do? And we knew that the only way to get public or actual somewhat, I love the way you said, a down payment on clean water
is to replace these damaged pipes and to make sure that the city was treating the water safely and they didn't do any more, dangerous switches back, no changes, and that they followed the laws, just do your job, basically. So with that being said, we filed in January of 2016, and we were able to keep the water pods open because they were trying to shut those down, which was the points of distribution where you'd go pick up water. We were able to get that actually expanded. We were able to get filters. We were able to get all this stuff. But then the state, we actually won a preliminary injunction. And this was, by the way, the work of the community, because we started going out to different neighborhoods, especially the overlooked neighborhoods. We're going to the north end. We were going to the east side, different, non-English speaking areas. And we started taking depositions, and we took van loads of residents down to go testify and to give their depositions about what their life was like and how dangerous this water was, because the infrastructure was damaged through the state and city not treating the water properly. So that boring stuff aside, we actually won a preliminary injunction, which said the state of Michigan had to pay to have the bottled water and filters delivered to every single home, and then to make sure that the filters were installed properly. And the state said nope, and didn't do it. So then the judge was going to hold them in contempt, which I'm not sure how you hold a state government in contempt, but that's where it was going. And so we were going in, into that way. And then finally the judge said, I've had enough. The people of Flint need, they need to be treated properly. They need to be safe. And so they forced us into mediation. So that was 2 months of a nightmare. The things that you don't want to hear, and the reasonings behind, we don't want to pay for this because of that and all that. But March 28th, 2017, we went to federal court and signed the settlement agreement. So meaning every party, the city and the state and the plaintiffs, which was us, the residents of Flint who were impacted, the concerned pastors, all that great stuff, they agreed to a very, very clear-cut settlement that basically amongst all the other things, making sure that the EPA's enforcement order was stuck to. They weren't going to switch our water on us again without testing and doing it right. That they were going to start testing right. That they were going to install the filters and do the core program, which was an outreach and education to make sure people were getting their filters replaced on time, and for people who weren't able to install them because tiny pieces and hard to read instructions and just terrible, that it was being done so people were safe, and making sure people had the resources they needed. And we hired Flint residents to be able to do that and to make sure that everybody was going to get their service line replaced. And that was huge. We wanted to, of course, to do the mains and interior plumbing, but unfortunately, because the federal and state Safe Drinking Water Act laws are so outdated from decades ago, they didn't include the mains or the interior plumbing. So we still have to fight for those. But they did include the service lines. And actually the law only included the lead service lines that only went to the curb stop. However, because sometimes I can be clever, sometimes I have a gem every once in a while. I asked them if I could take my water meter with me when I moved. If I ever moved, can I take my water? Did I own it? Was it mine? Because I threw a fit because they had to come in the house and change my water meter again. And, because apparently several $100s a month for water wasn't enough for them. But they said, no, that's not yours. I'm like, then anything beyond that's not mine. So basically, we were able to go above and beyond the law in that instance because the judge agreed that, that's still city property. So the service line, and so we made history with that, and that's actually going to hopefully change the federal. Flint residents have made history with this whole thing. The fact that it was residents that busted it out. We were the ones going door to door telling people in February of 2015 there was lead in the water, even though they were telling us we were crazy and making it up and we're nothing else to do. But the lawsuit, it was the first time that people sued a government and won, forcing the government to pay to have this done at no expense to the residents, and not just pay to replace the lead lines, but to replace the lead and galvanized steel, because thanks to the help of the union plumbers, we were able to show that the galvanized, when it corroded, it trapped and released more lead than lead, because lead Swiss cheeses. Okay. So lead Swiss cheeses when it corrodes. So anyway, all that mess aside, we were able to make history in so many different ways. So we were getting the service lines replaced at no cost to the residents. People, as long as you had an active water account, because we knew shutoffs were coming back. As of March 28, 2017, you can get your service line replaced. and you didn't have to have your balance down to zero or any of that mess. So we
Oh,
made sure
wow.
all of that was covered.
good,
That was
too.
my baby. That was because I knew, well, one, my balance wasn't zero, and I knew shutoffs were coming. So I'm like, I can't afford this. So so we wanted to make sure everybody, we wanted no lead left behind. That was it. And so it got started, and I mean, we made history with it, but it was supposed to, they were supposed to keep the pods open until like the water came into compliance, and then there was testing issues, so we had to fight that and still extend that. And then, every excuse, so on a personal level, every excuse the city and state could have taken to get out of what they agreed to started within a month.
Let me ask you this while you're on that point about the pods. Now, there's been a lot of discussion in the community and this and that, and some of it by haters, but be that as it may, bad news can travel fast. Now, one of the things that was said was that the plaintiffs in the lawsuit about the lead service line replacement and the pods, there was conversation implying that you guys, the plaintiffs, did not foresee that the pods were needed for a longer period of time, and that was a shortcoming of the lawsuit. So I want you to clear that up for today, because that's been hanging out there a while.
Right.
And now that the water pods are not there again, it's kind
Happening
of
again.
creeping
Right.
back up.
So I'm gonna tell you, during mediation, when we had to go in with the state and the city and everything about what they were going to pay for, I'm going to tell you that it was easier to get $97 million for these lead service line replacements than it was to get the pods to stay open even one day past. Because it's the optics. They didn't want the optics of the water pods and people still needing bottled water.
Oh.
So they fought to shut them down immediately. Within the first month, they tried saying they're not needed. They tried to say that participation was down. People didn't need them. People didn't want the water, so the water was going to waste. So that's when we gave clipboards to the teams that were at the water pods, and they started marking off how many people were actually getting the water and taking the water from these pods. So they started fighting us from the beginning because they did not want that at all. So our lawsuit said, okay, and the law, again, the law does not cover bottled water at all, unfortunately. But we were able to get it put in because of how badly everything had been done. And we knew that, construction was going to shake things up past, the filters are rated for 150 parts per billion anyway. So there was discussion with that. So we did the filter study. But in the meantime, we had to keep those water pods open. And until the water came into compliance, and then it came into compliance a lot faster because when the state's in charge of the testing, there you go. Yeah. But then they tried shutting it down way before then, and we went back to court to fight it. And we got it kept as long as we possibly could until basically the state said that they had record that every house had a filter and that, the lead levels were dropping and all this stuff. So yeah, and the water laws are completely outdated. They don't cover bottled water because at the time they were written, that wasn't even a thing, right? Like, and also there weren't these huge disasters to where it's, heavy metals, bacteria, and cancer causing disinfection byproducts all in the water at the same time. This wasn't done, or at least it wasn't busted out by the public. But as Claire McClinton said on TV, they poisoned the wrong city. So we didn't let them get by with that. So yeah, no, we didn't let them. And actually, I've heard the mayor of Flint actually say, well, their settlement allowed them. No, the settlement kept them going as long as they did. Otherwise, the water pods would have been shut down in 2016.
Well.
Yeah.
Okay, so picking up from there, and you were discussing the some of the highlights of the settlement of March 28, 2017. Now, let's pick up on that and see what their deadlines and and how the deadlines were missed and where we at today, still not done with this effort.
So we had now at the beginning there were a lot of bumps in the road. We were the first city to do this, right? So there was a lot of learning to be done. So we were doing hydrovacing to save time and money, but then there were a lot of partial service line replacements, meaning it was, something had happened, there was damage, and had been replaced somewhere in the yard. Well, you do not want So you do not want a new copper line connected to a lead line because that creates an electrical current that will cause corrosion to be worse.
Wow.
So we fought to make sure that when we updated the Michigan lead and copper rule, that it bans all partial service line replacements, because in Washington, D.C., they had started replacing partial, so only doing the part, like the city's part, not the homeowner's part, and it made the lead worse. So, and there were some of the same actors, and we won't talk about him, in the DC problem that had come to Flint and tried to actually implement the same thing, and they tried to move to plastic and all that stuff, which you can't. Come on now, you can't do that here in Flint, and also the electrical work. Anyway, long story short, so there were delays, but at the end of the day, we were moving towards being finished in January of 2020. And that was the deadline. The deadline was supposed to be done in 2020. There were some delays due to the state bringing in AECOM, and that was a mess. But, you know, every time that they've messed up and missed deadlines, or they weren't testing properly, they weren't getting out the number of filters, people had difficulty getting things, we went back to court. We went back to court so many times. And unfortunately, our attorneys they got attorney's fees. They got a percentage of attorney's fees as of the March 20th, 2017. They had spent they turned in receipts for $2.4 million. So then the judge granted them that the state had to pay them $895,000 just to reimburse them for legal fees, right? So it's only a percentage. Took 2 years to get that money, but nothing since then, not a penny. And these attorneys have been with us nonstop, and we have been to court dozens of times, not to mention the hearings, the back and forths, the meetings, because we obviously don't want to drag the city into court and the state in the court more than we have to. But if they're not going to work with us, and we've allowed some stipulations, so you might have seen some news about there's a stipulation and an extension. That's without us having to go in front of the judge. You know, we would come to an agreement, everybody agree to it, and here's the new deadline.
Okay.
Like September 30th of last year, the city had picked that date to be finished by. They didn't start digging. They didn't dig at all in 2021. They stopped in 2020.
Hold up a bit.
Am I jumping ahead?
For that.
Okay.
The city did no pipe replacement in 2021.
None.
Okay,
And they
let the audience let that sink in for 1 second.
0.
They did no pipe replacement. So what was the response of the plaintiffs, the attorneys? I mean, did they go and sit down with Neely, the mayor at that time, and suggest what is the problem, or did they go back to court, or what did the plaintiffs and your representatives do when a whole year went past? And we know we had COVID and all that, but there was a lot of work going on outside during that time. Okay,
except
so
not
go
for the
ahead.
pipes.
Yeah.
So basically, when the administration switched over to the Neely administration at the end in November of 2019, the attorneys and plaintiffs reached out so we could make sure that there was no gap between, because up until that point we had 27,000. There was 31,000 properties, give or take, homes to be dug up, and we had dug about 27,000 up until that point. So it was moving fast. And so, you know, we were trying to get that into that 2020 deadline, right? And even with the hiccups and all that. So, and restorations were to follow, because, you know, when you do the service line replacement, you can't do a restoration immediately because the ground needs to settle. So they need to put sand and, you know, backfill in there.
Okay.
But it needs a couple months to settle, let rain come in to get the pockets out. Otherwise, you're going to have sinkholes. So that's why there was a trail, you know, and then there was several months between it. They wanted the ground to be settled before putting the sod or the grass seed down and all that.
Okay.
So that was a delay, but I mean, and that was fine, because as long as we were getting the lead out, that was what was important, you know? And so we were seeing the 90th percentile of lead, and that's a whole other test talking, down to 3 parts per billion, which it was at 26 when we started. And so that was a good sign. However, then of course, you know, we got hit with COVID at the beginning of 2020, and I found out on a Friday, I believe it was a Friday, it was in the evening, I found out from residents and then the news calling me that Mayor Neely had stopped the service line replacement program because of COVID. And I'm like, well, you can't just do that. You have to go to the judge. It's a lawsuit. This isn't like, you know, buddy thing, and you're not in charge. You're actually a defendant. So then we found out what was going on. And of course, the whole world was upended. So we gave them 6 months. You have a 6-month window, and then we're going to revisit. However, during that time, they were still supposed to be doing the testing, and they failed. So in 2020, we had to go back to virtual court because they had violated and they weren't testing the water correctly. Still aren't. So then in 2021, we're like, okay, well, let's go. Then, you know, the judge said we can start moving, and things are going to be, you know, there's a ways to keep your workers safe, you know, and the residents safe while this is going on. PPE is more readily available. Things are moving forward. Yeah, we got ghosted. So then we had to go back and forth and go back and forth and go back and forth and dance around with the city and then file stipulation after stipulation. And finally, the city had agreed saying, okay, we're going to be done by September 30th of 2022. And we're like, okay, so then they're supposed to send us status reports and they're supposed to, so that way we can check the work that's being done. That wasn't being done. So we had to go back to the judge. And then they were being done, but it wasn't complete. It was the same list over and over and over again.
Mhm.
And so it was frustrating. And then we're hearing from residents, hey, this isn't being done. We're hearing from restoration crews, hey, we haven't been paid. Well, hey, what's going on here? And then nobody's wanting to bid. And we're hearing all this stuff. And we're like, what is going on?
Mhm.
Also, how hard is this? You know, like, but then, so no digging was done in 2021. And we're pulling our hair out, right? And then, so up until like finally, we were hit August of 2022. And we're like finally tracking them down to where the attorneys flew in. And we met with, and not just over Zoom or phone calls like we had been doing.
Mhm.
We went to the mayor's office and the
Mhm.
mayor did not attend the meeting. He was out in the hallway. And the city attorney, and then we had the state on the line and Eagle and, the attorney general's office and stuff. So everybody was in the meeting and talking about, what's going to happen. And at that point in time, not a single thing had been dug up in 2022.
Mhm.
So 2021, nothing. 2022, nothing until we said, okay, well, we got to go back to court then. And so we kind of slammed with that. And then all of a sudden, Labor Day, right after Labor Day is when they finally started digging. And so, yeah, that was a mess. And we're not sure yet still what's going on. So then we had to go back to court. We said, okay, fine. We filed to go back. I believe it was late October. We had filed yet the 5th violation.
Mhm.
And had to go back to court because they weren't going to work with us at all. Right. And so they said they would, and they go back on it. They said they would, they go back on it. It's just a huge, this worst babysitting job I've ever had. And I made $2 an hour when I babysit my cousins when I was a kid, I was 12 years old. And this is nothing. I actually miss work because of this. So, but it has to get done because this is the one thing we can hold on to because criminal charges are tossed, everything else a mess.
Yeah.
This is the one thing. And also you all agreed to this in 2017
Yes.
and here we are. So things still aren't being done. So yes, and no pipe replacements in 2021, none, not really many in 2020, but then, okay, COVID, we'll blame COVID. But then 2021, 0. And then up until Labor Day of 2022, nothing.
Okay.
And then we start asking like, okay, what about restorations? You don't need to go into people's houses to restore their yards. Then we find out, well, we don't know how many homes need to be restored. Could be 2,000, could be 10,000. I'm about fell out of my chair.
Mhm.
Out of the 27,000 homes that's been dug. They're like, oh, we don't have any records. They tried to say previous administration burned them. I'm like, you burned the internet because it's like, whatever the excuses are. So then, of course, we're dealing with all this and we're going back and forth. And I don't know how the attorneys, who, by the way, have never given up on us. That's the one thing I want to put, the NRDC and ACLU of Michigan, they could have walked away and say, well, good enough,
We did the best we
we did the
could,
best
but-
we could, but no, they were here today, flew in today to make sure that the information was out. So that these folks, but they believe in it. And also we're setting an example for the rest of the world, or the rest of the country, at least, for the infrastructure bill. Now that's
Well, that is really, it's something that we should pause and take some pride in, but also we have to take some pride in the fact that a judge has ordered this, and
Yes.
that, who gets to defy a judge order?
we'd be in jail. If it was your hand.
So
Especially
what
your
we have to do is turn it over to the hands of the people, because now that a judge has said you have a right, the judge has said, forget about this one or that one and them decisions, whether they gonna do it. The judge told us that we have a right to pipe replacement and yard restoration. And I know for a fact, many of you have not had your yard restored and your pipes has been replaced from years ago. So we want to encourage residents to call your city council person and the mayor's office and demand. And I know I've heard horror stories about people trying to call and get their asking for a pipe replacement, and it's now it's up to us to take charge of the
Right.
situation, because we got the judge's order on our side.
Right.
And I want, before Melissa, before we're done with the show, I want to make sure you all get a paper and pencil and copy down the number that you can call. If you call down there and say you want your pipe replaced and you being ignored, there's a number you can call to get some justice around that issue. So I want her to give up that
Yes.
information. Very important information.
So, like Ms. Claire had said, February of this year, the judge said this has to be done. All inspections, meaning since they didn't have records, they needed to go to each home. And some of you may have gotten a door hanger that said, we've inspected your yard and the city of Flint thinks the work is done. If you have any questions, feel free to call or email. So get the pencil out. The number to call is 810-410-1133. And that is Roe and the city of Flint. You need to give them your name and your address saying that, hey, nothing's been done. If you haven't had your pipe replaced, you haven't had your yard fixed, or I got this door hanger that said everything was done and I don't agree with it. Also, there's an email address that you can email to. And I recommend you do this because I want everyone to keep records. Record the phone call, please. Take pictures of your yard, please. Save copies of your email that you're sending to gettheleadout@cityofflint.com. So that's gettheleadout, all one word, at cityofflint.com. Now, if you're not listened to, if no one's responded to you, if you've not heard back at all, and you've reached out and everything, the NRDC and ACLU, so the attorneys in the pipe replacement that are on the people's side, please call 312-651-7918 to reach the NRDC, Natural Resources Defense Council attorneys. Or you can email them at flintpiperemoval@gmail.com and send pictures and make sure they have your address and a phone number to get back with you, because we want to hear from you. It is critical that we hear from you, because the city's trying to say, well, nobody's coming out, nobody's saying anything, nobody's interested anymore. And that's what we're being told. It must be good enough because nobody's complaining. Well, when you shut down the phone line, there you have it. But it is very important. And the judge wants to make sure that everything is done and done correctly. So if you're, and let me explain what restoration means. That means your yard. So you should not have sinkholes. You should not have your water shut off sticking up like mine is. My house isn't even done. And you should not be sticking up at all. It should not be a hazard. Your sidewalk, driveway, and street should be fixed. It shouldn't be gravel. It shouldn't be bumpy. It shouldn't be cracked. It needs to be safe and restored to the way that it was before. Now, they're not going to plant fancy flowers or anything for you, but your yard should be, you should have soil on there, sod if you need it, but it should be reseeded and it should be level. Like, your water shut off should not be sticking up. It should not be a safety hazard. Your yard should be fine. And if it is not, you take pictures and you call the 810-410-1133, which is Roe, City of Flint, or you can email gettheleadout@cityofflint.com. And if you're not getting a response from them, then call 312-651-7918 or email flintpiperemoval@gmail.com. And that's reaching out to the NRDC. And I would say you can get a hold of me too, because a lot of people do. And as long as you're okay.
Give your information. Whatever information for your group or whatever.
Yeah. So actually, on the Flint Rising Facebook page, pinned to the top, there is a survey. If you want to give us a bunch of information that will help us with taking back to the judge, because that's what we've been doing, is giving everybody's information to the judge and letting him see it. It's a kind of lengthy survey asking, what stage you're at in the replacement process, but that information will be super helpful. Or if you just want to talk to the attorneys, you can call them directly. But yeah, we do have a survey where we're collecting information, photos, and all that, because we're just going to give it to the attorney so we can take it and present it to the judge, be like, look at all this, because we need him to know what's honestly going on. But then also remember that the lawsuit isn't just about pipe replacement and restoration, that for up to 1 year past the last pipe coming out, which God knows when that's going to be, you get free filter cartridge, free filter and free cartridge replacements that you can get at City Hall, or you can apparently call their health navigator. But also, you can get 2 every 6 months free lead and copper test of the state. That is provided through the lawsuit as well. That is mandatory. It's not a thing. And I heard today somebody had said it's for the comfort of the residents. No, while construction is being done, period, you need to be careful, because the entire water, even if it's not in your neighborhood, the entire water system's connected, and it's going to take a year for that to settle down, for the pipes and everything in them to settle down and stop releasing these contaminants. So please, bottled water, filters, replace your filter cartridges, clean your aerators. Please be careful. And I know we all want to go back to normal, but we need to be healthy in order to do that. So please, and get your water tested, because I'm tired of hearing that, the water's great and everything. And also, I just want to point out that since they started blending our water, so please be aware of that, our water source has been changed a bit, that things have been happening. People's water in their homes are getting worse. Their lead's gone up, their bacteria and everything. Please get your water tested. And there's independent labs, there's things like that. But I mean, at this point, just remember, construction is ongoing because we're forcing it. And to be safe. Your safety and the health of you and your family and your loved ones is the most important.
Well, we really want to thank you, Melissa, for bringing this information from the history on up to now. But the judge has given us a right to get pipe replaced and testing and yard restoration. So not only contact the numbers that she shared with you, but call your city councilman, because we need our local elected officials to start making some noise as well.
Yes.
So if you're not getting satisfaction from calling administration and so on and so forth, call your city council. They can bring these issues to the fore at a council meeting, and that will go a long way in facilitating and helping get this done. This should have been past done. And so many people, and this is going to be probably the last conversation. A lot of people are talking about Benton Harbor. In less than a year, they got all theirs done. And also now they're moving inside the homes to interior.
I know.
And appliances and things like this.
We've been asking for that.
And even with the ARPA money, I don't want to get off track, but we look at Saginaw, they're doing hot water heaters, roofs, siding, windows. There is but we are the difference between getting what we want and not.
Yep.
Our silence is deafening, and there's a lot of money coming in here. And believe you me, people are trying to get their hands on it. But you and we as a community, we need to take ownership of our rights. We need to take ownership of our lives. And so call these numbers if you need your pipe replaced and if you need restoration. And restoration is, I think that's a bigger problem than the pipe replacement, honestly, because so many people who've been able to get the pipe replaced and their yards is tore up, their sidewalk is tore up. So call these numbers that she shared with you again, 810-410-1133. And if you don't get a satisfactory answer, call your city councilman.
Yes.
Don't just stop here, because they're doing what they're doing on the court end, but we need to do what we got to do on the street end.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that in court, the city has been saying, well, nobody in Flint's complaining, so they must be fine with it. We're not fine with it. This is not okay. We deserve better.
Yes, and that's such a cheap shot.
Big time.
Regardless of whether we saying something or not, there's been a ruling.
Do your job.
And we want because even though all of us weren't plaintiffs, we were all involved in pushing the envelope and getting what little piece of justice we can grab hold to. And we plan on collecting on what we supposed to get.
Yeah.
We're going to do that. And so call these numbers again: yard restoration, pipe replacement, 810-410-1133. You don't get an answer or you don't satisfy with the answer, pivot and call your city council person.
Yeah. And then also don't forget to call the NRDC, call the attorneys. So that's
the attorneys, let them know.
312-651-7918. And you can email them at flintpiperemoval@gmail.com. And we have videos too of the previous, we had just done a town hall with the attorneys, and we have these forms that we're happy to give to people talking about the new deadlines and then know your rights, which I don't know if you can read this from here. I'm going to hide behind them. So we can give this information to you, so you'll have them handy, but you have a lot of rights and you deserve this. I mean, it's no, what you said exactly. It's a down payment on clean water. We're going to fight for the mains and interior plumbing and everything, but right now, let's get this done because the judge said it has to be done. So yes, they were supposed to do the property inspections by May 1st. They already are in violation of the February order because they missed that. And then they're supposed to have all the pipes removed by August 1st. So if they didn't do part 1, I don't know how they're going to do part 2, but.
And ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, to my union members out there, and boys and girls, we don't have to put up with this, and we're not going to. So right now, again, this is one in a series of the unfinished business series. Tonight we were talking about pipe replacement, yard restoration. Next time, hopefully, we're going to have a very important guest here to talk about emergency manager, how we lost our democracy. We could not have lost our right to clean water if we had not been stripped of our democracy. And we're going to get deep into that because we want to understand who's benefiting from these high water rates, the poisoning of the city, and all of these things. So we're going to get into that on our unfinished business series. But we want to close out tonight showing 2 videos. One is called Home, and it was done by a local R&B artist here named Shimmy. And it was done in 2016. That was not too long after the water crisis. And we also, right behind that, we want to show you the video, The City of Lead, with Ira Dorsey, and that's become like a national anthem of Flint. And it's just so smart and well done. And so we're going to close out showing those. Hopefully you can show that with our technical experts over there.
Yes.
Trying to get to it.
All right. Thank you all. And remember, you matter. Absolutely.
Show us.
See if you got any questions on there that we need to answer.
Oh, so can't.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, guys.
Now our tech support, he gonna make it
We're
happen.
gonna get it together. Go get him.
It's on the screen, but I don't know if it's still play. And we're still up in the corner,
Oh,
so we gotta dance. You dance.
what is it?
I said we're in the corner. So,
Oh,
but I was like, you dance.
Uh-huh.
I just.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. It's right there. Play.
grab your other cohort.
Yes,
Let's,
sir.
we don't want the people sitting up here waiting. They'll leave us.
Right. I mean, we're pretty interesting, but you know.
Hold on one more second, folks.
Get that team. Gonna play that.
Judge my heart, not my mind. If you hating on me, just wait in line. Out that city where kids are dying. If it's not from the lead in the water, it's the lead from the nine. To save a generation, I would give my life to those who don't even have a chance no more. The blood to be doctors to save my life. This mass genocide so they can't be white. And I thought clean water was a human right. Not according to Nestle. Guess you gotta pay for that BPA. Bottle during the drop in CA. I see capitalism alive and well. When my friends and family are living in hell. Rick Snyder helped poison Flint. But when you're that rich, you don't go to jail. And when you're that rich, you don't give a shit about socioeconomic statuses unless you benefit from them tax breaks and the 1% receive accolades. While my grandfather worked 5 to 5 in General Motors for 25 just to take a bike out in 05 and still worked hard till the day he died. Now you're telling me that's the American dream and my kids can be anything if they go to college for 100,000 and never live a day out debt free. Sounds shitty, we don't want pity. All we ask for is a fair chance, equal education for everybody, and a drink fountain with no lead.
Treat my city like you treat your daughters, and love my people like you love your dollars. Everybody singing right, living life in strife from day to day. Everybody singing right. You better treat my city like a
Media will persuade us to think politicians can save us. Make America great again by dividing up all of the races, religions, and social classes. As if that's all that matters. Like we aren't all human, dealing with different circumstances. Let me paint you a picture so vivid that you have no choice but to see what's in front of you. Regardless of God you believe in, what country you come from, I love every one of you. Cause I see a son in you, a brother, a mother, a father, a cousin who just wanna live free in peace. There's war on the streets and war in the Middle East. Still I see no changes, just racist. We get on news threads with hot heads and argue over what separates us. Hatred is perpetuated, privilege is segregated. The police pepper spraying at peaceful demonstrations. We see infomercials from across the globe that can't drink the water. Then it hits home, our youth poison, IQs are lowered. Future shattered in a city where hope is already broken. Of course they tell us don't politicize it, while state employees drink clean water, citizens will die. Now celebs visit and donate, we throw concerts and fundraise. But before water was ruining lives, it was strays from the AK. I just hope y'all don't forget when Flint's no longer trending on Twitter. Cause even when wounds are no longer visible, people with scars will always remember.
treat my city like you treat your daughters, and love my people like you love your dollars. Everybody singing right, living life in strife from day to day. Everybody singing right. You better treat my city like a home.
No. And you're wearing it too.
That's what I was supposed to.
So this, I know we agreed to the podcast. Let's start off with it's not bad. I've just been playing for us.
It's been great. We would have enjoyed it.
Great. And now a new danger. It's water.
The Lord now, I haven't he saved me. There's lead in the water, affecting the babies, and I don't know why they lie when they tell me the Black Lives Matter when the system is the
And we'll
wish I could
wrap
go
up.
back and find a solution because no one should ever have to be treated unhuman. I wish I could go back and find a solution because no one should ever have to be treated unhuman.
We got lead inside the water, we got lead in our guns. These politicians poisoning our sons and daughters for fun. Washing my face and hands with nothing but bottled water and wipes. Disable Buck Snyder's administration ruined the pipes. And now we're fighting for our lives and asking who can we trust. Problems about us, these politicians, they ain't trying to discuss. And then they wonder why we rarely vote, I'm keeping it real. If you're not from Flint, then you could never understand how we feel. Rachel Maddow broke the story, now it's worldwide news. I wish the governor could walk a couple blocks in my shoes so he could witness all this poverty and crime that exists and all this hatred and racism we've been fighting against. City of lead.
In the Lord now, I haven't seen me. There's lead in the water, affecting the babies, and I don't know why they lie when they tell me that Black Lives Matter when the I wish I could go back and find a solution.
Or something.
Because no one should
Just
ever
put
have to be treated
You have a phone number?
I wish I could go back and find a solution because no one should ever have to be treated unfairly.
But it was far from fine. The children's blood tests revealed high exposure to lead. So how did Flint's water supply become contaminated? To save money,
Barack Obama drank the water trying to put us at ease while our people were still dying from Legionnaire's disease. And not one pipe has been replaced and not one hole has been dug because they trying to sweep the water crisis under the rug. And thanks to Dr. Mona Hanna for exposing the myths on how contaminated water been affecting our kids. And only God can judge Rick Snyder for this urban disaster. They ought to treat them the same way they treated Kwame Kilpatrick. Plus when I think about the kids, it brings a tear to my eye. The EPA just stood by and left us out here to die. Only celebrities can come and claiming that they support us, but we need money in Flint and not just some cases of water. City of lead.
I wish I could go back and find a solution because no one should ever have to be treated unfairly. I'm asking the Lord now, I haven't seen me. There's lead in the water, affecting the babies, and I don't know why they lie when they tell me that Black Lives Matter when the system is I wish I could go back and find a solution because no one should ever have to be treated unfairly. I wish I could go back and find a solution because no one should ever have to be treated unfairly.
In nearly 2 years, residents have been subjected to drinking water with elevated levels of lead. Complaints to authorities fell on deaf ears. In addition to the presidential meeting today, 2 class action lawsuits are being filed today, blaming high-level government officials for the toxic water. On the list of people being sued, Michigan Governor Rick Snyder, a Republican who acknowledged in an interview that the Flint water crisis is Hurricane Katrina.
The kids did great. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Yeah, my kids are there. That's
So
great.
they can show their children.
Yep.
Are we back live?
Yep, looks like it.
All right. Well, we're going to end on that note. That was the Flint Water Crisis National Anthem that we just saw.
Yep.
And before that, an outstanding video by Shimmy concerning the water crisis, and his narrative in the Shimmy video is very deep if you listen closely. And it's such a Flint video too, because he talks about his grandfather working in the shop and that type of thing. So all of this stuff is Flint proud stuff, and it helps inspire us to get up and move forward, because we got some good talented people here, and we got some out there stories, and we will survive and thrive. So thank you again. Join us in 2 weeks. We hope to be having a conversation with one of our state representatives who introduced the emergency manager law to repeal the emergency manager. So we're going to get deep into that discussion as well. And again, moving forward, we will be talking about the unfinished business. And everybody can do something. And if you don't like the groups that's out here trying to do something, organize your own group. That's all good. So thank you again, Melissa Mays,
Anytime,
for
Claire.
your work
Anytime.
and for your and we will have you back because we're not done with this.
No, not even close.
just in case some of your city leaders are listening, we're not done. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Sure.
Like, share, and subscribe.
Do.
There's some information on these podcasts that's not duplicated. And the other podcasts that are out there are great for what they do, but we are great for what we do. So we appreciate you coming in. Like, share, and subscribe for this program. Thank you. Have a good one.